Karl Rove on Fox News? What? Dude, he should be walking into prison, okay? Karl Rove should be the only place Karl Rove should be walking into is prison, motherfucker. I cannot believe that he's walking into Fox News instead to be like, I can't believe America's doing this.
When the war in Afghanistan began 20 years ago, and he joins me now. Karl, good to see you. As always, your thoughts as we wait for the president, and also your thoughts on how the president has handled this so far from a communications perspective, I would say. We didn't hear from him all weekend. We expect to hear from him in a few minutes.
Yeah. Look, it's been a disaster. He sent out his spokesman this weekend who said that we'd had a successful operation in Iraq, actually in Afghanistan. Not true. The last few days, they claimed the mission had been accomplished because we went to Afghanistan to get al-Qaeda. No, we went to Afghanistan to both get the people who brought down those towers on September 11th in 2001, but we also went to remove Afghanistan as a haven for terrorism. And once again, we've established Afghanistan as a haven for terrorists. Al-Qaeda, Taliban, other groups will use the country as a safe haven from which they can attack the West and attack the United States. This has been a dreadful chapter, mishandled from start to finish. From the moment the President of the United States said we're going to remove our troops on September 11th of 2021 to the hurried up, badly planned, badly executed disaster that we're seeing play out on our screens. It's been terrible from start to finish.
President Bush was interviewed recently, and he said that he was
there's no TOS there.
Worried about what was happening with the Taliban and also about the idea of an exit.
Wait, he literally started this. What the fuck's he talking about?
From our perspective, with the really relatively small footprint that we had of troops on the ground here, here's a bit of what he said. All right, let me read this out for you. I'm sad. Laura and I spent a lot of time with Afghan women, and they are scared. And I think about all the interpreters and people that helped not only U.S. troops, but NATO troops.
Dude, hundreds of thousands of people died as a consequence of both of those dipshits on screen. Like, literally, directly. Like, they personally murdered hundreds of thousands of women, men, children. What the fuck are they talking about? You know how we could have avoided hundreds of thousands of deaths? By literally not invading Afghanistan. Like, it blows my fucking mind that these people are still alive, well rested, on fucking mainstream media, talking about the actual fucking crimes that they committed.
Troops. And it seems like they're just going to be left behind to be slaughtered by these very brutal people, and it breaks my heart. Karl.
70% of the population of Afghanistan, 39 million people, 70% of them are 25 years or less. They only know a country in which there is growing opportunity for everyone, in which women can go to school, in which women can live outside the home, in which women can pursue.
Like, this never happened, dude. This never happened. Even in fucking cities. Originally, it did not happen. Like, it's so insane. What about the fucking people that you bombed, dipshit? They died, so they can't go to school anymore. What about those women? Oh, you don't give a fuck about those women because that's collateral damage. So these fucking demons actually talking about the women they care about blows my fucking mind, dude. It is... I don't even have an analogy for it. It's like... I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. Like, we never cared about the women in Afghanistan. That was not the reason why we went into Afghanistan. And we certainly didn't care about them when we were bombing the fuck out of them. We didn't care about them when we were bombing their houses. We didn't care about them when we were, like, directly murdering them. We didn't care about it when Donald Trump literally fucking pardoned and interfered with the investigation of that famous fucking special ops guy, Eddie Gallagher, who literally was such a fucking prolific murderer of women and children that his own troops, that his own battalion fucked up his sights so he could stop fucking murdering women and children regularly. Like, this is the kind of atrocity that we subjected the Afghan people to on a regular basis. So the very same leaders of this momentum of this devastation, the actual main purveyors, the main people that started this, coming back on television to be like, oh man, I can't believe it. Like, fuck, dude. I can't believe we're just like betraying these people. It's wild to me. Was that proven? Yeah, of course it was proven. What the fuck do you mean was that proven?
Careers in which everyone is given a measure of freedom and opportunity, and now they're going to be thrust back into a barbaric regime. But think about this. As the Taliban made its way across Afghanistan in recent days, they've rewarded Taliban fighters by giving them, quote, arranged marriages with teenage Afghan girls whom they've never met.
That literally continuously happened under the U.S. occupation, dude. What the fuck? That happened under the U.S. occupation. That continued to happen under the U.S. occupation. Not only that, but our troops that fucking said that was... Eddie Gallagher was not found guilty for killing. He was only found guilty of taking pictures of a dead enemy. Yeah. It's just like the details don't matter. I'm talking about something entirely different here. Okay? You are wrong? No, I'm not wrong. I'm 100% right, dude. I'm 1,000% correct. It literally kept happening in the entirety of Afghanistan with the exception of, like, I guess, Kabul. You can say I am wrong all you fucking want. Like, that's insane to act like this didn't happen. Guys, we already know that, like, the same forces that we were supposedly training, the Afghan security forces, were literally fucking kids, dude. Like, they were fucking kids. And the American military high command was telling people, stop reporting it. Just look the other way. You think we give a shit about the sanctity and the welfare of Afghan citizens? I'm 100% right. You are just overdosing on fucking copium. That's all this is.
And never known, and they're literally surrendering them to the control of Taliban fighters to be their wives. I mean, this is the kind of barbarianism that we saw for decades in Afghanistan that stopped after American...
And did nothing to stop in Afghanistan because, you know, we don't give a shit. Do we care this much about Afghan? Stop making jokes about Taliban on Twitter, an Afghan woman. Really, dude? My fucking jokes about the Taliban in between, like, literally relentless fucking coverage extended to it over the course of the past fucking 12 hours is really the main reason why all this shit's happening. If that's your hyper focus as an Afghan woman, then I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, go watch MSNBC then. They'll continue fucking telling you, no, actually, permanent occupation is really good. We should let the Afghan security forces do the rapes on Afghan women so that, like, 6 girls in Kabul could fucking go to college. I mean, it's fucking disgusting what's happening. And it's always the civilians. It's always the fucking marginalized groups that are the casualties of war. But if your goal ultimately is to justify endless American occupation, then you're a fucking idiot. Okay, have some respect. This is no joking matter. Yeah, okay. All right, well, I'm going to keep doing that, so. So you mean every woman who's crying or fearing for their life on every media interview I've seen are lying? I'm not saying they're lying, dude. I'm saying that they were in a fuck situation even when America was there. And America was never going to be there forever. What the fuck? You're really going to fucking side with Karl Rove? Like, are you insane? He's the main reason why so many fucking women died already in Afghanistan. What the fuck? Jesus Christ.
troops and special operators joined with Afghanis to liberate this country. And now we're turning it back to the same people who refused to turn over Osama bin Laden, who gave safe harbor to al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups. Now they're going to reestablish their brutal regime. And yet, you bet the former president of the United States is deeply upset about this. For 20 years, Laura Bush has hosted groups of Afghan women who came to the United States after beginning to taste freedom in their own country in order to learn about the opportunities that were available to women all around the world.
Bro, your conspiracy
and the
is showing
idea that the Taliban is going to somehow allow that to continue is absolutely ridiculous.
But Carl, you know, the criticism also is asked of the Bush administration in terms of what the mission was at times and whether or not it was ever possible to complete that rebuilding, a democracy in Afghanistan. And you look at how quickly it fell apart when we removed our presence there. And a lot of people would say, well, that presence was all we needed. You know, that those several thousand troops was all we needed to keep this going, to keep this hope going. But what do you say to those critics of going in there in the first place?
Imagine the world if in sometime in the 1950s, somebody, Dwight Eisenhower, somebody said, you know, we've been in Europe too long, let's come home, bring everybody home. Do we really think Russia would not have taken advantage of that? What would have happened in the 1960s or 70s if we had said, you know, the Korean War, which isn't officially ended, let's get out of Korea?
Why are people killing themselves over U.S. planes when they can leave freely otherwise? Because they can't, because people are in a fucking state of panic, because they're worried. They're worried about what the Taliban is going to do, because the Taliban wasn't always a group of individuals who are like, oh yeah, totally, we want women to go to school. We won't like enforce a burqa rule. They were the type of fucking people. They were the type of dudes that were, you know, headshotting motherfuckers and like cutting their heads off on TV. So understandably, the very same people who have enjoyed civil liberties under the American occupation are going to be terrified that their way of living and the way that they are, the way that they like, the way that they live their lives is now threatened. But the reality is, how can this be fixed? And first of all, I'm fully on board with fucking offering amnesty and permanent refugee status or asylum to all of the people that want to escape Afghanistan. So I don't know why the fuck you're yelling at me about this when these same fucking demons in suits would never, ever allow that to happen. So I don't know why you're yelling at me. Okay? Like, literally, if you're fucking crying to me about how little I give a shit about the women in Afghanistan, like, I advocate for all of the people of Afghanistan that wish to escape to get unconditional amnesty to the victims of American war and American occupation. Thank you, Locket Rancher, for the 10 Tier 1 gift subs.
Do you think Asia would look like it does today, where we have strong allies and great trading partners? What would have happened if we had withdrawn from those areas? And the same thing here. Our combat role was ended. The last American casualty was in February of 2020. We had a small group of people, but they were powerful. They provided intelligence gathering, they provided leadership, and most important of all, they provided air power. And the one thing that was keeping the Taliban in check was the realization that if they ever presented themselves to American air power in support of Afghan ground fighters, that they were going to be dead. And for us to have taken the short-sighted view that the United States should walk away and that we wouldn't suffer any ramifications, no fallout from this thing is just astonishing to me. Better to have stayed and kept this commitment to the Afghan people and kept America safe. We fought them over there, so we didn't have to fight them here.
I advocate that's the most self-important thing you said. Sorry, I didn't fly a fucking AC-130 over there and, you know, scoop up as many women as I possibly could so that your fucking delusional liberal fantasy could be accomplished. Yeah, there is not much more I can do from here and in general. And it's a hell of a lot more than what the overwhelming majority of mainstream media is doing at the moment. So suck my fucking cock and go watch MSNBC and cry about Katie Couric or some shit, I'm sure that they can't respond to you. They don't give a shit that you're alive or dead. So you shut the fuck up and you take whatever slop they're serving you there. Okay? Because whether you like it or not, America's puppet government is still better than the fucking terrorists take control of the government. Yeah, dude.
Here, do you think the regime that gave safe harbor to Al Qaeda is going to be interested in payback against the United States of America? You bet they are.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to hear that argument made by President Biden, but he made the opposite argument that what we needed was to bring everyone home. We haven't lost, as you say, a member of our U.S. military in 18 months. Now you've got 6,000 people on the ground there, just trying to hold the airport, which is proving to be a very difficult task, even with these increased numbers.
Yeah, only a difficult task because of the citizens that are trying to get on board, by the way. Not because, like, the Taliban is fucking attacking or anything like that. A difficult task because the American military is trying to forcibly stop Afghan citizens that are trying to escape Kabul from getting on fucking planes. Understandable, because, like, some of them are literally so desperate that they're fucking clinging on to the tires and shit. But that's the literal reason why. Interesting that they're not mentioning that. Interesting that there were no solutions about, like, I don't know, allowing a fast, expedited refugee process to all asylum seekers immediately. None of that. Oh, yeah, Joe Biden bad. Joe Biden bad. Okay, dude. Yeah, I'm sure. No, we should have just kept staying in fucking Afghanistan and kept fighting and having people fucking die for no reason, dude. That's a better way to do it.
On the ground in the airport so that we can get people out. Carl, thank you very much. I know you're going to be watching this along with us, and we're going to take the president as soon as he begins.
Bunch of fucking wild saviors in the chat, dude. Bunch of fucking wild saviors in the chat going, oh my God, our puppet government was actually a more civilizing force. Shut the fuck up, dude. God damn, Americans are so fucking pathetic, dude. Even liberal Americans are just, like, so insane when they talk about this, like, the American occupying imperial force is actually a civilizing force of imperialism. When they were fucking blowing up women, okay? When they were blowing up women with drone strikes, they were actually doing it in a civilizing manner. Shut the fuck up.
767 out of
Station stands with the good people of New York City.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes.
We've been at war for 18 years now. We're not winning, we're not losing. Presidents come and go, but nothing really seems to change.
Vital national interest to send an additional 30,000 U.S. troops.
We're learning about the Pentagon Papers, where the American government actually internally realized that this war was fucking never going to be won. Okay? You know, maybe this will help you, I don't know, reconsider your fucking white man's burden, civilizing force of imperial good rhetoric.
To Afghanistan.
The Pentagon
Our
Papers.
troops will fight to win.
About Afghanistan. Pentagon
They will
Papers
fight
2.0.
to win.
So how are we going to tell this story? And we thought through these documents, these firsthand interviews from people who were involved, and yet this material had been suppressed for so long, that this was an original way to tell the story of all the failures in Afghanistan.
We're basically fighting the wrong way.
We just let the Afghans rip us off
because we didn't know how the story was going to end.
We are not really here to win.
In the fall of 2016, General Michael Flynn, who at that time was a retired U.S. general in intelligence.
Oh, yeah, by the way, fucking Michael Flynn, dude. That's the other part of this that's incredible. You know, that QAnon psychopath. The Republic was not awesome, but if you seriously think withdrawal now is a good idea, then you are dumb. I know someone from here who did not want us to go, and we just made everything there go from bad to worse. You know, you can, like, live in Afghanistan and still be wrong, right? I don't know if you know this or not. Like, maybe they're too young to fucking recognize that, like, an occupying force is never a force for good. Maybe they're too dumb to recognize that now, at the very least, you have an opportunity to fucking, I don't know, implement sovereignty organize, fight back against the Taliban. Maybe you have no friend that is saying that. I'm glad. I appreciate your fucking, personal anecdote from your friend. Kind of strange, though, because everything points to, with the exception of Kabul and certain areas that benefited from Western involvement, kind of seems like for most people that live all around, Afghanistan, it's like, well, not much is changing. And we'll talk to people living in Afghanistan tomorrow.
Intelligence director at the Pentagon was working with Donald Trump on his campaign, and he was in the headlines quite a bit.
You admitted that many people are enjoying civil liberties under American occupancy. There's a great potential for that to change under Taliban control. It doesn't matter, bro. That's not how you can do things, okay? That's not how things work. Americans are so fucking asinine, dude. It blows my goddamn mind. Like, it literally blows my fucking mind that you can openly sit here and be like, well, some people were enjoying civil liberties under American occupation, so we should continue waging war and occupying a country. That is completely psychopathic. I don't know what you need to recognize that. Like, how? You're literally getting duped by the media telling you, like, it was actually good. That American imperialist war machine was a force for fucking good. Like, what do you want? You want to fucking keep sending hard-dicked 18-year-olds out there so they get fucking blown to bits? Is that what you want? By another 18-year-old who has no idea what the fuck 9/11 even is? Like that, because that's what's going on right now. There's motherfuckers who were not alive when the Twin Towers fucking fell, that are going out there and getting their shit blown up by other dudes that have no fucking idea about why they're fighting the war that they're fighting. No, it's sick, dude. We should keep doing that. We should continue doing that. So 20 years down the line, when the inevitable pullout also happens, because this is a war of attrition, then it will have these same exact conversations again. Meanwhile, no one is talking about, like, evacuating the people that you care so much about. Why not? Why won't you allow fucking refugees to come into the country then? There hasn't been a casualty in 18 months? I wonder why. We all know the war drum is mostly being beat by military girlfriends who want to continue cheating on their boyfriends and husbands. Probably. Is 3,500 non-combat troops an occupying force? Be realistic about what was there? Dude, that is such a psychotic take, dude. You're so fucking dumb. If they continued the occupation, then there would be a necessity for more fucking troops, because the Taliban would not just sit there and be like, all right, I guess there's only 3,500 troops. Why are they there? Why? They're there to extract minerals. They're not there to fucking... They're there to extract allow American corporations to fucking extract minerals from Afghanistan. Not because they genuinely care about, like, fucking women going to school in Kabul, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? And by the way, ultimately, that was the same fucking bargain that the American government ended up making. Why am I repeating the same takes over and over again? There's, like, really fucking dumb people.
Love it. America first. America first.
And we'd heard there had been an interview done, a long interview done with Michael Flynn, about the war in Afghanistan, and that this interview had been conducted by an obscure government agency called the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. Since Flynn was in the news lot, we wanted to take a look at that interview, and so then we had to file a Freedom of Information Act request, and this dragged on for weeks, and Trump won the election, and Trump was president. Now Flynn was his national security advisor in the White House.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And ultimately, they denied us the interview. They said it wasn't a public record, so the Post had to file a lawsuit in federal court to obtain it.
Ambassadors, local, down at the local level, everybody did a great job. We're all doing a great job. Really? So if we're doing such a great job, why does it feel like we're losing?
Michael Flynn was, just unsparing in his criticism of how the war was going. Then we found out that Flynn was only one of hundreds of people who had been interviewed by this Inspector General for Afghanistan over the previous few years. So we thought, well, we want to see what everybody else had to say about the war, all these insiders and generals and diplomats. And the agency hemmed and hawed, and we won the lawsuit with Flynn, so they couldn't really say no. And it led to what ultimately was 3 years of legal battles, and we had to file a second lawsuit. We didn't start getting more of them really till 2018. There were hundreds of these. This is what we were told, over 400 of these interviews. And the more we got, the more we realized that the patterns here of what all these people said really added up to a real indictment of how the war was fought and the policies behind it and how misguided they were. Separately, as a batch of documents, we managed to obtain hundreds of memos that Donald Rumsfeld wrote when he was the defense secretary in the Pentagon. It was the National Security Archive at George Washington University that originally obtained them. So the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, it's a mouthful. They go by the acronym SIGAR, S-I-G-A-R. They were created by Congress in 2008 to investigate fraud and abuse in the war zone. These documents that we obtained were really for a special side project that they called Lessons Learned, that they wanted to depart from their usual mission and they wanted to take a look at the policy failures behind the war. This started in 2014, they decided to do this, and the purpose at that point was they thought the war was winding down.
And by the end of next year, our war in Afghanistan will be over.
It's all ready for record.
University, and I had did a lot for years in Afghanistan, so I was quite well known. If you're going to use a quote from me, could you run it by me?
But little did they know, the war was going to keep dragging on. In a way, these interviews are incredibly timely. There are people looking back at what went wrong, but they're still talking to the problems that exist now that still haven't been resolved, and why the war is still going on, and why the United States can't get out of it. Well, I told my editors, I said, these documents are something that first haven't seen the light of day. They were supposed to be using these interviews to publish their own report. So SIGAR, starting in 2017, started publishing some reports every once in a while, but there were these big, thick, doorstop government reports with a lot of charts and numbers, and only a few quotes from the interviews they did.
Now, the goal of today's report is to help U.S., Afghan, and other coalition policymakers and agencies as they prepare for that daunting task of assisting with the reintegration of
the Inspector General himself, a guy named John Sopko. At one point, I went to meet with him to tell him why I thought this information should be public, and we've already filed Freedom of Information Act requests. What's the problem? This is noteworthy, this is newsworthy, the public should know about this. And he agreed. Even this guy who's the head of this agency who's resisting giving us the documents, he says that the documents show the American people were lied to. We first came to your office 3 years ago. more than 3 years ago, in August of 2016, asked for General Flynn's interview, which I haven't seen quoted in any of your lessons learned report, but it's a eyebrow-raising interview where he's very blunt about problems in the war. Why couldn't you be more forthcoming with these documents? Why did it take so long to release them?
Well, first of all, we don't have classifying authority.
Right.
So we have to send it back to, under FOIA, send it back to the agencies to review. And as a matter of fact, some of the material that I think may be at a Flynn interview, but I know some of the interviews, was classified.
Of the 400 interviews that were released, only about 15, 16 of them had any classified information redacted.
Yeah, but we still have to review the information. We also have to then go through a whole process on it.
But you weren't trying to slow roll it?
No. And no one's asked us to slow roll it, and we wouldn't slow roll it. I think of any inspector general, I've probably been the most forthcoming on information. We're firm believers in openness and transparency, but we got to follow the law.
There's a clear pattern that what was said in private in these interviews contrasted so greatly with what U.S. officials, presidents, members of Congress, military commanders, what they had been saying in public over 18 years. Usually the talking points were all pretty similar. They would say the war's it's a tough place.
Conditions that are very trying.
It was a tough year.
Afghanistan, there's still fighting going on.
Increase in Taliban violence.
A higher level of violence.
But we're making progress.
Progress.
Significant progress.
You know, we're going in the right direction.
We are on the right road.
In the right direction.
And our strategy is sound.
I think it's important to understand that we do have a strategy that's quite broad.
That our strategy is succeeding.
And they would give a very detailed case for why the American people should keep having to fight this war halfway around the world. But when you read these interviews, people would say that this was a lot of spin and lies to some extent.
And after 03-04, once we're fully engaged in both wars, I can't remember us ever saying, should we be there? Are we being useful? Are we succeeding?
There were people in the White House who were giving interviews saying very explicitly that statistics or figures about the war that were indicators of who was winning and losing or how things were going were being twisted around or manipulated or almost made up.
As intelligence makes its way up higher, it gets consolidated and it gets really, really watered down.
One of the most sobering things to read for me was just how many people involved in the war were very blunt and candid that the strategy, the war strategy under Obama and Bush and Trump, they all said it was worthless. A few excerpts that I was shocked at. I mean, there was Doug Lute, General Lute, who was the Afghan war czar in the White House for 2 administrations, Bush and Obama. So this guy was, from the White House perspective, overseeing the war. And he's saying things like, you know, we had no idea what we were doing. He said, I bumped into an even more fundamental lack of knowledge. We were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. General Dan McNeill, who was a 2-time military commander there. I tried to get someone to define for me what winning meant even before I went over, and nobody could. This is the commanding officer 2 times of the military in Afghanistan. To me, it's pretty astounding. These are the people in charge of the war, essentially saying it was a disaster, and they knew it. But I don't see any of these comments in your lessons learned reports. Why didn't you include those?
And that is sort of the limitation of where we go. See, as an inspector general, I don't do policy. What all you quoted were people talking about a bad policy. So,
why did your staff interview all these people I just quoted if they aren't going to be used?
Oh, they may well be used.
But they weren't. None of those people.
Not up to now, but.
That's the whole fundamental reason questioning why the United States is there. How could you let that drop?
Well, we didn't let it drop. I mean, the stuff is available. We're still producing these reports.
We just sued you twice to get our hands on it.
I don't know if quoting General Lute saying that we screwed up or we didn't have the plan would be any more useful than the audits and investigations and other reports that we have, which make the same point.
You don't think that would be more useful to have the White House war czar, who admitted they had no idea what we were doing in Afghanistan, and you don't think that'd be useful to tell that to the public?
In my humble opinion, no.
You know, when you talk about the very basics of why we were there and what they were trying to accomplish, these people who were in charge of the war, military commanders, ambassadors, people at the White House, they were very plain and blunt spoken about this, to say, we didn't have a strategy. We didn't even know who the enemy was. Who were we there to fight?
These carefully targeted actions are designed to disrupt the use of Afghanistan as a terrorist base of operations.
Well, originally, President Bush decided to start bombing Afghanistan because Osama bin Laden, he was in Afghanistan. So it seemed straightforward at the time. Well, we have to go to Afghanistan because we have to retaliate against al-Qaeda. But in pretty short order, within several months, there weren't many al-Qaeda left in Afghanistan. So then the war shifted, and then it became blurrier. Who were we fighting? Who was the enemy? Was it just al-Qaeda? Was it the Taliban? Well, yeah, we were fighting the Taliban, but we didn't even have a good sense of who the Taliban were or why we were fighting them. Some of these interviews are really eye-opening from people who played a really key role, and one of them was Ambassador Ryan Crocker.
For the record, this is how manufacturing consent works, okay? Exactly, precisely what he's talking about. The media will fucking bang on the war drums, and some of you dummies will hear that and go, oh my God, like, even though the actual intelligence shows that the narrative that you're hearing from the media is completely, wholeheartedly bullshit, okay?
Crocker, who actually
it doesn't
served
fucking
as
matter, and you're doing
top
it right now whenever you tell me about saving Afghan women.
Top U.S. diplomat in Afghanistan twice, and he was also well known as U.S. ambassador to Pakistan and Iraq. So this is a very seasoned diplomat. And he told a story to these interviewers. They were asking him about an Afghan vice president and defense minister named Mohammed Fahim Khan. Ambassador Crocker told this story about how when he first met Fahim Khan, this warlord, it was in 2002.
He was giggling, and he proceeded to relate to us that a mob had gotten out of control at the airport and had murdered the Minister of Civil Aviation. And he giggled while he related this. Later, much later, it emerged, I don't know if it was ever verified or not, it emerged that Fahim Khan himself had the minister killed. But I certainly came out of those opening months with the feeling that even by Afghan standards, I was in the presence of a totally evil person.
You know, the good thing about Fahim Khan is that he is dead.
Yeah, and I check about every other day, and as far as I know, he's still dead.
This was one of our closest allies in Afghanistan for most of the war. So the U.S. knew it was dealing with some very, very difficult, ruthless, brutal people. But the point Crocker was making is these were our allies in the war. We had some difficult decisions to make on who we were fighting against and who we were fighting with. It makes you realize that this war is in real trouble if you can't figure out who the enemy is, why we're fighting them, and what we hope to accomplish. Now, what they've done is they've blacked out the names of probably 90% of the people they've interviewed. They also redacted some material that they said was classified. They redacted a lot of material that they just said the public has no right to know. Now, you mentioned about there's some people whose names you couldn't divulge.
Yeah.
Your staff has made the argument that they're whistleblowers. Do you see these people, these 400-some people, as whistleblowers?
When somebody comes to you with information that could be derogatory to their current job, their former job, their colleagues, we treat that information carefully.
But they didn't come to you, you went to them.
Well, we went to them, whatever. Just like a Washington Post reporter will go to somebody and somebody will say, I'll talk to you, but I don't want the information revealed.
But you're not a Washington Post reporter,
well,
you're an inspector general,
but
right?
I'm under the same restrictions about not divulging sensitive information. You may have a different objective. You want to have the name out there. You can talk to them, and that's okay. That's your job. But my job and my people's job was to try to get the information, to try to come up with best practices, with lessons learned. And if the person said, I'm not going to talk to you if you quote me, well, okay, we'll take the information anyway, because this is a different type of report than our normal.
The Post really believes very strongly that the public has a right to know who said these things about Afghanistan. That if these people are saying that the Afghan war was screwed up, that the United States didn't know what it was doing in Afghanistan, that this is a waste of money, a waste of lives that has gone on for 18 years, those are very damning comments from people who are involved in the war. And the public has a right to know who's saying these things. And they went to great lengths to hide this material from the public.
There's lack of courage.
The administration simply wasn't being held to account for what was going on in Afghanistan. There was very little high-level Congress wasn't attention. Criticizing.
But we just did so many things that weren't thought out systematically that ultimately doomed our mission in Afghanistan.
Now we move on to how the CIA basically waged war in Afghanistan. The second part of this process. Now that you understand that, check who did the graphics on the WAPO vid. Oh, was it Will Neff?
Outlining the war plan. The administration adopted what you had essentially laid out for a period of time as the campaign plan for Afghanistan. And that was unprecedented, right? To have someone from the Central Intelligence Agency sort of outlining the war plan.
It breaks all the rules. The job of CIA is to inform policy, it's not to make policy.
Will Neff in the end. Common fucking name, guys. Vice News is interviewing Robert Grenier.
Robert Grenier is the former CIA station chief for Pakistan and Afghanistan. He was responsible for designing the Afghanistan war plan following the 9/11 attacks that drove the Taliban and al-Qaeda from Kandahar. This was a stunning turn of events that the veteran intelligence officer has captured in vivid detail in his new book, 88 Days to Kandahar, a CIA diary. Vice News sat down with Grenier at his home in Virginia to talk about America's longest war. Post 9/11, you were the chief of station in Pakistan at the time. What happened next?
Well, as the chief of station in Pakistan at that time, I had responsibility not only for Pakistan, but also for all of Taliban-occupied Afghanistan, which was 90% of the country. In a sense, the story began well before. About 18 months before 9/11, I and the others in my station were working very hard to try to organize a anti-Taliban tribal rebellion in the South. Now, we weren't actively doing that because we didn't have a presidential finding that would permit us to do that. We didn't have the authorities. But we were reaching out and establishing relationships that we hoped would enable us to lead that sort of a rebellion if and when the order came to go forward. And obviously that order came to go forward in the immediate days after 9/11.
In the immediate days after 9/11, you had hoped, according to your book, that you could utilize all of those assets that you'd been developing relationships with to actually accomplish either overthrowing the Taliban or pushing al-Qaeda, denying them safe haven in Afghanistan. That was the initial goal, right?
As I tried to explain to Washington at the outset, look, at the end of the day, unless we're going to colonize Afghanistan, we need to have some sort of a political dispensation in that country that will deny it as a safe haven to international terrorists. And so initially we were hoping that the Taliban would be that force. Now, they had refused up until then. With the potential imminence of an American invasion, we were hoping that that would cause Mullah Omar, the head of the Taliban, to change his mind. He did not change his mind, and so I worked very hard in 2 long meetings with his deputy to try to convince him to push Mullah Omar aside and do what his chief could not. And he very briefly agreed, but that agreement didn't survive his return to Kandahar, and he quickly thought better of it. And so in the end, we had to push the Taliban writ large aside and come in on the side of the Northern Alliance in the civil war, but very, very importantly, at the same time, support tribal leaders in the Pashtun south of Afghanistan who were willing to rise up against the Taliban. The Taliban was an indigenous religious movement, really, much more so than a political party. They were a movement in southern Afghanistan, in the Pashtun areas of Afghanistan. And it was that movement which was empowered by the situation after the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, when the different mujahideen leaders who had united in the fight against the Soviets fell to fighting against one another. And so Afghanistan was a complete mess. There was absolute insecurity. People, particularly in the south, were looking for someone to save them. And the Taliban was that force, and Islam was their driving motivation. And when you don't have anything to include security, the one thing that you most crave is security, and that's what the Taliban was able to provide.
In the post 9/11 days, the administration adopted what you had essentially laid out for a period of time as the campaign plan for Afghanistan. And that was unprecedented, right? To have someone from the Central Intelligence Agency sort of outlining the war plan.
It breaks all the rules. The job of CIA is to inform policy, it's not to make policy. And because CIA was in such a unique position in Afghanistan, first of all, the country was very little known, very little understood, including even within the intelligence community, certainly in the executive branch writ large. We quickly determined that the best way forward was for us to leverage relationships with Afghans on the ground who could do what we could not over the long term, and that is to deny their country as a safe haven to international terrorists. And because CIA had those relationships, people were looking to CIA to actually lead this effort. And so that put me in a very, very...
I love when he's like, did you guys catch the part where he's like, you know, we didn't have actual congressional approval, but I was still trying to desperately drum up some kind of insurgency against the Taliban in the region, you know, just like gearing up. Interesting stuff from the CIA man. I also love watching videos like this because he's basically saying precisely what I've been telling you, but he's saying that it's good. The main difference between like what I do as far as commentary and what he is doing here is telling you exactly what the fucking details of the case are, or the details of the situation is, but I think that's bad, and I tell you why I think that's bad. He's basically just saying, like, that's actually pretty good. We're just casually doing all this, and it's also, you know, it's actually a casual way to try to drum up an insurgency against it. He's like, why are you there, dude? Oh, sorry. To advance America's interests, of course. Trick question. So where are all the fucking annoying neoliberals now, chat? Where are all the annoying neoliberal defenders of how I'm a fucking conspiracy theorist or some shit? Maybe they're stuck on the top of the hour ad break that's coming right now because it is fucking 5. You lost 5K viewers? I don't care. What do you mean? Dude, no one is going to sit here for 6 hours and listen to the complicated history of Afghanistan over and over again. Okay? Maybe they are stuck watching this motherfucking ad break, baby. Of course, if you no longer want to be stuck watching the ad break, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do it for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime if you have one. Okay? By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, or you can use an ad blocker or a VPN, but here's the 1 minute ad break now.
Very unique position, and I laid out first for the War Cabinet and then for the President how I thought we should go forward, at least in terms of broad outline, and that's what the President approved.
And so that began what you describe in your book as the first Afghan war.
Right.
Can you explain these distinctions? How many Afghan wars are there?
Well, we don't know yet. And you could go back to the days of the anti-Soviet jihad when the U.S. at least played a supporting role for the Mujahideen. But in terms of direct U.S. involvement in hostilities in Afghanistan, obviously that began with the immediate post 9/11 period. And as I describe in the book, the 88 days, it was 88 days from 9/11 until the 7th of December 2001 when we and our Afghan allies succeeded in driving both al-Qaeda and the Taliban out of their capital, which was Kandahar. And so that, to my mind, was the first American-Afghan war, the one that we thought, at least, that we'd won. And that, in fact, we had the opportunity to consolidate that victory. I think that we and the Afghans, they don't escape blame in all of this, failed to do that. And by the time I returned to focus once again personally on Afghanistan and Pakistan in the spring of 2005, by that time I was the director of counterterrorism, made an extensive visit both to Pakistan and to Afghanistan. And you could see at that point that the Taliban was beginning to gain traction once again in southern and eastern Afghanistan. We didn't know how serious it was at the time, but that, to my mind, was the start of the second American-Afghan war, the one where the U.S. essentially took over. After 2005, as we began to see the situation slipping away, and in a sense, in so many words, we as a government decided that Afghanistan was too important to be left to Afghans. And we
Hey, one Albanian chatter, shut the fuck up, okay? I changed the Talibania title to Talibama just so the singular Albanian chatter could shut the fuck up in the chat. It's kind of cringe. Albanians allowing people to come in. Kind of cringe. Literally one guy. I changed it. Are you happy? Shut up.
We tried to turn Afghanistan, I would argue, into something that it was not. A highly centralized state with a large army, large national police force, and we tried to do things that we certainly were not going to be able to do in the amount of time that we made available, and that arguably Afghans were never going to be able to sustain on their own. And I think that was the big error that we made. That's led us up to the present and the substantial U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. And I'm concerned that at some point, when things shift again and the front lines in the global jihad move once again, that once again international terrorists in significant numbers may be motivated to come back to Afghanistan, and we may be forced to fight another American-Afghan war.
What do you think the prognosis is for Afghanistan now in this diminished American presence there?
I don't think we will ever see a coalition government involving the Taliban in Kabul. There's always going to be a place for the Taliban as long as we're around in Pashtun society, and somehow that's going to have to be accommodated. And I think that is the story of the next few years. I'm afraid that if the international community, particularly the United States,
wow, it's almost like this motherfucker back in 2015 knew exactly what was going to happen. Just like back in 2014, they knew exactly what was going to happen. Like the fucking Pentagon Afghanistan papers that we just saw. They always fucking knew. You just found out just now, and you're still, for some weird reason, repeating the dumbass liberal mainstream media warmongering positions that, for whatever interest they may have, trying to justify the continuation of the occupation.
States abandon Afghanistan, financially especially, that this government could go under and we could end up in a situation very similar to the one that we faced just before 9/11.
Now we're facing a new terrorist threat, an emergent terrorist threat in northern Iraq and Syria, in the Islamic State. What are the lessons that we can draw to apply to this new threat that has emerged in the Islamic State?
Well, you're suggesting that the situation with the Islamic State, ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call it, in Iraq and Syria is quite different from what we faced in Afghanistan and parts of Pakistan. But there are some very important analogies to be made. And I think it really, from our perspective, it has to do with what the constructive U.S. role should be. What we're facing in Iraq, and even more so in Syria, is that we don't have effective allies on the ground in those countries. We need indigenous forces. We don't have them. Already we're beginning to see pressure build to see a much more...
And that's where the Kurds come in.
robust American effort in those countries. And I think that that would be a very, very serious mistake because, as I say, there, as in Afghanistan, at the end of the day, these countries are going to be ruled, governed by the indigenous people. And if we come in a very heavy-handed way, we qualitatively change the nature of the struggle. It becomes the infidels fighting against good Muslims. And that actually undercuts our natural allies in the area. It strengthens our natural enemies. That's not where we want to be, and that's where we could end up, just as we did in the latter years in Afghanistan.
What are our lessons learned from the Afghanistan conflicts?
The primary lesson that we need to learn has to do with this large, in fact, global problem that we have of an ungoverned space. Those are the spaces that are used by international terrorists as safe havens.
Biden just erased the last 2 decades of our work in the Middle East. Our work doing what? Fucking your mom, dude? Listen, motherfucker, if you're going to talk like that going forward, you have to fucking... I will drop you, okay? I will drop you out of a fucking plane with a parachute strapped to your goddamn chest so you go continue the work, okay? That's it. The moment that you ever say some shit like this on the internet, anonymous or not, you get boop, put up in a fucking system where you're forcibly drafted to go do whatever they're talking about, okay? Spend 1 day in Afghanistan, then your opinion is valid. Biden will go down as one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. Sleepy Joe really just erased the last 2 decades. How many days did you spend in Afghanistan, you dumb fuck? Glad Biden just shit on the countless number of soldiers we lost fighting in a war that... Hey, dumbass, you're almost there. Okay? You're literally almost there. Yes, the countless number of soldiers we lost fighting that war, let alone the civilian casualties, which is significantly fucking higher as far as numbers, but you don't care about them because they're brown, right? Because they're not human in your minds. Why do you want to extend that, you dumb fuck? The countless number of soldiers we lost. Hey, welcome, dude. This is the first fucking step towards you recognizing that war is a goddamn racket for the wealthy and elites and people who are going to make money off of all of those fucking young kids, men and women, going over there and getting fucking blown to goddamn bits, okay? Hello. There you go, dude. Imagine going to the battle with your brothers to lose them fighting the war over your own president. Also, and I've said this before, and I will say it with my entire fucking chest, if you are a veteran and you went down there, you did not recognize the atrocities that you were fucking committing, and then only now where you're like, oh my God, why did I die? Why did my fucking best friend die in vain? Then you're a dumbass, dude. Welcome to the real world, okay? Yes, you were abused. Yes, you were exploited. Welcome to recognition. Welcome to recognizing that abuse. Maybe, perhaps you should work to dismantle that same system instead of fucking being like, all the fucking Afghan civilians I shot in the direction of, what was that for? Nothing? Dumbass. Now, the moment for your redemption is upon us, okay? Shut the fuck up and get the fucking work. Get the fucking work to try to stop that from happening to other people. I agree with that. So we just let him win? What do you mean let him win? They won. It's their country. It's literally their country. Okay? We went in there, got our shit pushed in, okay, like a bunch of pathetic little fucking losers by a bunch of goddamn goat herders using weapons from like the last time we armed them, okay? They wore slides, motherfucker. You went down there, wore a goddamn rucksack or whatever kind of fucking 80 pounds of gear in the middle of the desert heat, couldn't get acclimated to the fucking climate. We're having a fucking heat stroke the entire goddamn time. Cost like $200,000 just to carry your dumbass around and all the fucking gear that you had on top all around. And then some motherfucker in slides and an RPG literally owned your shit, okay? Absolutely fucking dumpstered, and owned your goddamn shit. Perhaps it's time to fucking reconsider, okay? Invasion was warranted. United clans of people that treat girls and women like goldfish, harboring people that claim to be responsible for 9/11. That is not a justification for going anywhere, okay? Shut the fuck up. So why didn't we stop when fucking Osama was no longer in Afghanistan? Why do you continue it for 20 years, dude? Just for funsies, right? Shut up. Yeah, they were using fucking recycled batteries to just absolutely destroy like $1 million fucking pieces of equipment. All it was for was so that like 10 fucking companies could make a goddamn killing. Okay? By taking your tax dollars and pumping it into research and development, and also using that research and development as a testing ground on the civilians of Afghanistan and Iraq, so that they could then turn around and use it on you, the American citizens, when you come back and your brain is fucking broken from PTSD and you think wearing a mask means it's like devil time and devil worship, so you want to fucking protest against the government. So now they're using the same kind of fucking the long-range acoustic device that they used in Iraq 10 years ago on your bitch ass. Okay? Good luck. Have fun. What a great situation we have created for ourselves. Someone's got to use those weapons. Dad is a vet and was there for 9 years of his life, lost his best friends, and people back home just sit on Twitch and shit on our vets. Yeah, you're right. All of our vets are dumbasses. No, my friend. I'm saying specifically your dad, okay? Your dad who's a veteran who was there for 9 years. I love that you are not a veteran, by the way. I guess you missed it when I was talking to a veteran, but whatever. No, I'm saying your dad is a dumbass, okay? You can be a veteran and still be a fucking dumbass. And if your dad is unaware and like now, only now is he recognizing that like he was fucked over by the American government and he doesn't want to change that. He doesn't want to like all of a sudden join About Face or Veterans Against Foreign Wars or I don't know, a multitude of other fucking organizations that are readily available for veterans who recognize that like their service was for literally nothing other than improving the bottom line of like 12 goddamn military industrial complex corporations, then yes, your dad is a fucking dumbass. Sorry, that's just the goddamn truth. I'm not gonna fucking I'm not gonna treat you with kitty gloves, okay? It's just the truth. It's literally the truth. At least a lot of veterans recognize that shitty bargain and work against it. Do you want me to serve it to you with like a little bit of fucking sugar coating? Is that what you want? I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not a veteran. Yeah, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying your dad is if he's like, if that's his take. How the fuck do you guys seriously back the fucking Taliban? This is what America's really become? None of us are backing the Taliban, you dumb fuck. God damn, I'm literally having a conversation with a 14-year-old who has no understanding of like complex geopolitical problems, warring tribes and shit like that. That they just think like you're either the part of American military or against it and pro-Taliban.
And those are the spaces that need to be filled one way or another. And those are not spaces that can be permanently filled by the United States or the West writ large. That's something that can only be done by Muslims. And so I think if there's a lesson that is reinforced by our experience in Afghanistan, it's that this global struggle is really not between the West and a group of radical Islamists. This is a struggle within the Islamic world for the heart and the soul and the future of the Islamic world. And ultimately, it's Muslims who are going to determine the victor in all this.
In 2002, as the U.S. was secretly laying the groundwork for another invasion, this time in Iraq, Grenier returned to Washington and was named Iraq Mission Manager. He was responsible for all of the CIA's intelligence operations and analysis in the country. Were there mistakes made that helped to foster what we...
You were so good at sounding confident talking about something you know nothing about. What, that kid's dad is a dumbass because he thinks that, like, you know, we should have been permanently in Afghanistan? Okay, well, that's an authority figure that you should agree with. The fucking CIA dipshit over here who's saying the exact same thing. He just thinks it's good. I think it's bad.
See now is the rise of the Islamic State?
The short answer is yes. There were many unintended consequences of decisions that we made in a different context, particularly with regard to Iraq. You know, given the extent to which I have been very critical of the George W. Bush administration in the way that they conducted that campaign in Iraq. Some people may be surprised to learn that, in fact, I supported the effort at the outset. I supported the idea of invading Iraq in order to topple Saddam Hussein. And we could spend a long time talking about, you know, the reasons for that. I've not given up that idea. That said, as soon as we won the military campaign, as we knew we would, and relatively easily, I think we made a series of very bad mistakes. Now, we don't know how history would have turned out if we had followed what I would regard as wiser policies, but I certainly felt at the time, and I think history has borne out, that we made some very serious mistakes in formally disbanding the Iraqi army, in formally disbanding the Ba'ath Party. And what we did, just as in Afghanistan, essentially we and our Afghan allies conveyed the idea to the Taliban that there's no place for you in the new Afghanistan, we conveyed the
As a soldier, you are not there to kill or slay places. We were there to actually help build schools, rivers, make sure you water is a resource. I'm not saying it's good being a soldier, but hanging people out like that makes you a dumbass, says Ghost Fanta. Are you a veteran? Are you a veteran? Are you a veteran? Okay. I'm not a veteran. Okay. I'm a Korean War veteran. Hold on. I'm going to find... Hold on. Okay, I am a veteran now. Just kidding. That's one. Two, are you fucking that stupid? As a soldier, you're not there to kill or slay places. We were there to actually help build schools. There is 0% chance that this dude actually fucking toured. Okay? Like, literally 0% chance that this dude toured. Like, I will put money on it, okay? Yeah. I love mechanical soldiers. I love calling up, you know, electrical soldiers to come and, you know, fix the lighting in my house. You know what I mean? My brother, for example, is an aerospace and mechanical soldier. He builds, you know, satellites and stuff like that. Oh, wait, there's a term for that. It's called engineer, dude. Yeah, I love when Obama was building a hospital by blowing it up in Kunduz. None of you fucking nerds will ever understand actually being there to help and not kill dumb fucks. I love the amount of help that the American military gave the people of Afghanistan by, you know, shipping their own pedophile warlords into certain areas. Or at the very least, just like giving them bags of cash. It's pretty funny. They really, dude. When I think of Afghanistan, I think of all of the fucking wonderful schools. I was an HVAC technician in the Air Force, but when I deployed, I was boots on the ground. This dude is a dumbass.
The conception to Sunnis writ large that there really is no place for you in the new Iraq. And I think it was exaggerated by them, but that was the clear idea that they got. That's what drove the insurgency that we fought. And it was that insurgency then that created the space for Islamic extremists to come in and essentially take over the struggle. I spent about 16 years overseas, mostly in Muslim countries, mostly in primitive Muslim countries. And during that time, you managed to pick up a lot of stuff. Old guns in Afghanistan and daggers from the Arabian Peninsula and Pakistan.
This is Yemen, right?
This Yemen, exactly. And this one is from Morocco. This is a gold inlaid crysknife from Indonesia. This is a particularly interesting one, I think. This is all gold fill, and if you take a look at the blade, it's all it's watered steel.
Some real fucking colonization happening right in front of our eyes, dude. I went there, fucked shit up, stole some artifacts, and now I'm back, baby. I got paid handsomely.
And this is an old manuscript that was given to me as a gift by a very dear friend in North Africa. And of course, it's all handwritten, probably about 150
What's he doing in North Africa, chat?
or more years old.
Grenier was working at CIA when the agency received approval in 2002 to use so-called enhanced interrogation techniques, or EITs, on suspected high-value terrorists who were detained at secret black site prisons. In his book, Grenier said that by the time he inherited the EIT program a few years later as director of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, it was efficient and highly disciplined, and with the exception of waterboarding, he supported the continued use.
No, the black site isn't in Portland, chat. It was in Poland. The good friend in North Africa, 1000% is like an Egyptian black site that he's referencing, like a dude that was a torturer there, probably.
Of the methods. In the news very prominently lately is a retrospective.
Guys, he's woke on fucking torture. You know, we talk about Taliban a lot and we're like, oh my God, they're doing this, they're doing that. And they are fucking horrible, right? But then you turn your head around and you watch like this guy literally justify like torture of random people that they've just chosen to be high value targets. And it's like, that's so civilized. And I talk to my friends about this all the time. They're always like, oh, you know, you can't even fucking bribe cops here. Right? Like, oh, you can do that in other countries. You can't do bribery in America. I'm like, no. In Western nations, specifically in America, you just have a more formal process. You can bribe a government administrator or an official. You just have to do it through the formal channels. It's called campaign financing. You can bribe the cops. They literally even give you a card for it. Okay? If you bribe the police department, they will unironically give you a fucking get out of jail free card. Literally. You can get a nice little sticker in your car too. That's bribery. Yeah, you can get a PBA card. It's literally bribery. It's just more formalized. So we often think that like, oh, this kind of stuff never happens, dude. Corruption never happens in America. It's like, no, it does. It's just formalized. There's a formalized process to corruption. Anyway.
Look at the CIA's rendition and detention program, and there's a lot of debate about the efficacy of that. Is there the potential for that?
This dialogue isn't helpful. Saying vets are dumbasses is only going to push the ardent military supporters further from your base. Say they were manipulated, lied to, but it doesn't really help calling them dumb. I mean, they are, but saying it isn't winning them over. You're talking to a goddamn Korea veteran, son, okay? What's your disorder, Sergeant? What's your malfunction? I'm a goddamn Korea veteran, son. Recognize. Do you not see my hat? Lol, you sit here and blabber about bullshit for a living? Are you mad? Lib takes Omega Law. I'm not interested in your hot takes about Afghanistan.
What a fun weekend I'm having. Hey, if you're one of
Oh, I don't want to.
those people attacking veterans on the internet for lamenting the fall of Afghanistan, you're a bad person. I don't much care for your half-formed thoughts about... Gosh, what a fun weekend I'm having. Hey, if you're one of those people attacking veterans on the internet for lamenting the fall of Afghanistan, you're a bad person. I don't much care for your half-formed thoughts about American imperialism as you attack the very people that end-stage capitalism forced into the military. Why don't you go look up how they recruit, huh? Really don't love how you all keep ignoring all the horrific things the Taliban has done throughout history in your scramble to criticize the US or the 41 other countries that are part of the International Security Assistance Force, which was in Afghanistan. Frankly, I don't think you care at all about the people of Afghanistan. You just want to yell at people on the internet and take a huge problem and make it small so that you can attack me instead of, doing the internal work of realizing that international conflict is messy and complicated and often has good and bad parts. But what would I know? I was only a part of it. And no, I don't feel bad for going. I was a medic, and nothing you can say will change my opinion of the things that I did and experienced there. I helped the people of Afghanistan. Have you? Gosh, what a...
This is not me. No, I know. I just look, I'm not one of those people who's fuck every veteran unconditionally, they didn't have to serve, fuck them, they're a piece of shit. And there's a lot of people like that, especially on the left. Okay. But when I see this sort of stuff, I'm like, dude, stop, dude. Just say you're against it. And that's it, okay? You're literally a fucking combat medic. You already know you're smarter than the other fucking grunts. What are you doing? What is stop. I don't think he's against it though. I mean, he sure seems like he might not be. Yeah, he says he was preyed upon by late stage capitalism, so I think he understands the vibes. What if you joined before you were pulled? More on lefties? No, that's what I'm saying. It's just still so cringe, though. He's right about the indoctrination. He's right about the different reasons for why people join, which is why I'm saying that, which is why I'm always saying, look, I'm more understanding. He also did say he doesn't regret it. This is why they say joining the military is the male equivalent of dropping out and becoming a stripper. What the fuck do you mean? Strippers are overall. Strippers are overall doing a public service, dude. What the fuck do you mean? If he dropped down, if he dropped into Afghanistan and dropped that bussy, I wouldn't be having this conversation. Okay? Can you imagine, dude? He just went down there and was just fucking throwing that ass back, dude. At the Pashtuns, yo, what's up? How do you like me now? Give me some of that fucking guy liner, baby. Let's go. I'm gonna fucking throw it back. I'm gonna drop a metric ton of ass on that fucking Kunduz hospital, bitch. Let's go. That would be good. That would be a good thing. I'm just saying. Airdropped bussy first? Yeah. About this tally bussy, dude. So you don't think soldiers provide society a service? I do. I think it's a bad service for the most part. Some do all right. There's ultimately you are literally working for a war machine that is main output is just bad. Please don't say the vets are dumb. You will hurt their feelings. For real though, 20 years, $2 trillion. How did the U.S. manage to accomplish nothing? No, they did everything. The Afghan war wasn't a failure, dude. It was a fucking massive success. It's just that, like, the main goal wasn't to, like, bring democracy to Afghanistan or overall improve the social welfare or lives of Afghani people. It was just to make money and extract natural resources from Afghanistan. And on that front, like, they made hella money. They're caked up, dude. They did great. Lots of opium production. You know what I mean? Fun fact, guess what comes up on Google first when you search for vet suicide rates? What? Addiction therapy? Like opium addiction therapy? Is that what it is? Probably. I thought it was 22 a day. It just sucks, dude. Anyway, let's finish this fucking dumbass CIA guy talking about how he thinks torture is great.
That to now come back into play as we're fighting a
No, the opium harvested from there doesn't go to the pills we use. The overwhelming majority of opiates, like the legal opiates, pharmaceutical corporations get their opium from Tasmania. But the illegal shit, the street level shit, you get from Afghanistan.
new threat in the Islamic State.
The harvested
and how do those two work together?
When we were capturing people, detention and interrogation was a very important issue. And the reason that we are not capturing as important people in anything like the numbers that we were before is because they're no longer present in the places where we and allied services can capture them. For the most part, they are in ungoverned space, whether it's in Iraq or Syria or Yemen or Somalia, the tribal areas in Pakistan. So it's not as though the U.S. government, made a strategic or a tactical decision. We're going to stop trying to capture these people. We're going to kill them instead. It's that we just don't have the same opportunities to capture them that we once did.
How critical was that program in 2002 and 2006?
Right. Yeah, I inherited the program as it had evolved when I took over counterterrorism in late 2004 and into 2005. 2002, 2003, it was critically important. Al-Qaeda was a very...
Yeah. Massive failure, by the way. Like, they got zero workable intelligence. Zero. Literally no intelligence whatsoever that was actually... Like, it's not even a... It's like beyond incomprehensible. I can't believe he's like, oh man, some of the torture was good. Like, no, dude. Would you join the army? Fuck no, dude. Are you fucking insane? What the fuck would I do that, dude? Why would I do that shit? Have you seen what I talk about? First of all, I'm a veteran of Korea, so what if the army was building schools though? Yeah, then I probably still wouldn't do it, but then it's like a different conversation. That'd be sick. To protect your nation? From what, dude? From fucking what? I can't even join the chair force because my eyesight is fucked. From wait, can you explain to me what the army's protecting the nation from? Like the fucking goat herders that we just saw?
Disciplined, centralized organization. We didn't have good intelligence sources on al-Qaeda at the time. The only real insight that we got in the early days on al-Qaeda was through capturing these individuals and interrogating them. Now, a majority, even of the worst, the most valuable, if you will, who came into CIA hands, a majority of those never saw anything more coercive than what you would expect to find in a U.S. police precinct. There was, however, a minority of those with whom we engaged in harsh interrogation. And of course, that has become a very politically sensitive.
The American military literally tortured one of you guys who might even be in the chat right now. Like, with similar enhanced interrogation techniques. Yeah, Chelsea Manning. That's a vet I respect. This dude is just, lying out of his ass.
Issue since, but
what are your thoughts on if they should have balkanized Afghanistan? Do you think that could have been an option, seeing as Afghanistan has very little to speak when it comes to a unified culture? Kind of unlucky that you don't have a full perspective. /shrug. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things that policymakers do that I would disagree with, but as a whole, Intel does a good job at what they do. Parakeets. What the fuck are you talking about? The enhanced interrogation program was entirely fundamentally flawed, a human rights violation through and through, which is precisely why you had to fucking do it in black sites. And lastly, it failed. It was a gigantic failure. I know you watched, it literally didn't work. That's the worst part about it. Even if you go beyond the fact that you are routinely violating human rights. You were just doing those war crimes for no reason. I'm a right-wing nationalist, so complete opposite to what I believe I've heard. I believe. Never heard of you, but judging by things, you're pretty far left. My friends and all agree that modern war is bullshit and all just about money and destroying poor countries for their resources. I believe just leave these nations alone and rule how they want to be ruled and let them sort themselves out if they want to change, so we agree on that front anyway. Who the fuck says they're a right-wing nationalist, dude? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're a psycho. My man just said, I'm a Nazi, I'm like a little bit. I'm like one step removed from a Nazi, or just actual Nazi. Wait, hold on. Someone in the chat just said, right-wing nationalist equals Nazi lol. I forget who it was. I couldn't catch him. But yeah, that's what it is. What do you mean? What the fuck? As a member of Al-Qaeda, I also agree. Biden tweet on 6K troops for departure. I've authorized 6,000 troops to deploy to Afghanistan to assist in the departure of U.S. and allied civilian personnel from Afghanistan and to evacuate our Afghan allies and vulnerable Afghans to safety outside the country. Our current military mission will be short in time and focused on its objectives. Get our people and our allies to safety as quickly as possible. And once we have completed this mission, we will conclude our military withdrawal. We will end America's longest war, Jack. He didn't say Jack. Yes, he did. Here's your chance to have access to malarkey by being a reply guy. I'm sitting down with President Biden on Wednesday for an exclusive interview. What would you ask him? I'm not gonna. Yeah. L nerd ratio.
In terms of what came out,
I'm gonna say you fell off. L nerd ratio. That's what he should, and then he's forced to repeat that to Joe Biden.
out of that program writ large, it was critical to us at the time. We didn't understand our enemy, and I think there's a lot that's probably not really understood. People sort of had this Jack Bauer conception that you interrogate somebody aggressively, and he tells you where the bomb is hidden, and you get there just before it goes off. In real life, it doesn't work like that. In real life counterterrorism, it's all about the people. And in a disciplined organization where they carefully compartment information, as Al-Qaeda did, even capturing a senior member of the organization is probably not going to tell you very much about ongoing plots. What they can tell you about is the people. And so if you get to the people before...
Yeah, that's literally why the program that you said was working fine didn't work.
They can mature and launch those plots, you can keep those plots from reaching fruition. That's really
what ends up happening in the real world, as we found out from the enhanced interrogation strategy's abysmal failure, which was investigated by the Congress, which the CIA then subsequently literally fucking spied on congressional members over, was that people just lie when they're being tortured to get you to stop torturing them. Like, they literally just fucking lie. Right wing isn't conservative and nationalist. Just because you are right wing and a nationalist doesn't filthy Nazi. Don't how you lefties arrive at the answer a conservative nationalist is a Nazi. Dude, what the fuck? Like, it wasn't the socialism that people remember the Nazis over. You know that, right? It was the nationalism. Like, you're openly admitting that you're a nationalist here in the United States of America in 2021, the year of our holy Lord. Literally, what a fucking Nazi would be like, oh, dude, I'm just a nationalist. I want to hear more from this fucking Nazi, though.
What we were about. We were trying to find out about their colleagues. Some of them were willing to give up that information relatively easily. Some of them, it was very, very difficult.
Do you have a personal opinion about the enhanced interrogation techniques?
Nobody in CIA was elected. CIA, just as the military, has to assure itself that the orders that it's given by the president are legal. But once they've assured themselves that it's legal, they have a professional responsibility to follow through. And part of the concern that I have with the political controversy that we're seeing today is that we run a serious risk of creating a generation in CIA which thinks that they should be deciding for themselves and for their own personal and bureaucratic reasons which of their lawful orders they're going to follow. Institutionalized insubordination is not where we want to go.
Why did you ultimately leave CIA?
Oh, that's a very long and complicated question, and it works on different levels. I'm glad that I left when I did. Not because I didn't like it, loved every minute of it. Within CIA at that time, as in many organizations, at many times, there were a lot of internal controversies. And
these guys are literally worse than the fucking... Like, the lowest rank and file CIA guy is still like at least 100 times worse than like every fucking dumbass grunt who's from like an upper middle class family, but joined the military because his pappy was in the military, okay? And his fucking grandfather was in the military, so he comes from a military family, and he's a fucking dumbass. So he too joined the military because that's what you're supposed to do. And now he's out of the military and still a fucking, now a gigantic dumbass and a conservative. That guy, significantly better as a human than like any liberal CIA agent. He's just like, I loved every moment of it. Like, yeah, I was destabilizing the Pashtun tribes, engaging in warfare, trying to get them to fight one another, you know, suspiciously right before 9/11. Suspiciously leading up to and right before 9/11. Nothing weird going on there, of course. But I loved every moment of it.
I would probably not be the first one to find himself in a position where his boss had previously had his job. And
like he literally said, we tortured some folks, and I loved every moment of it.
And when you set out to do the job differently from your predecessor, when your predecessor is now your boss, your days are probably going to be numbered.
Why write this book now?
If I'd written this book back immediately after I got out of CIA, it would have been a different book. It would have essentially been an adventure story. And I think a fairly compelling adventure story because there were a lot of extraordinary things that happened during those 88 days. But what I didn't know at that time was that we were going to be fighting essentially another war in Afghanistan. I didn't know the rest of the story. I didn't know how this thing was going to turn out, at least in terms of the active U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan. So the core of the story is still the same, but the context in which I present it is really quite different.
President Ghani has requested some flexibility on our drawdown timelines, and I've decided that we will maintain our current posture of 9,800 troops through the end of this year.
Last month, the Obama administration announced that it would slow the pace of withdrawal of the last remaining U.S. troops from Afghanistan at the request of the country's president, Ashraf Ghani, setting the stage for another bloody year of battle against insurgents.
Is there a fucking actual TOS here? What the fuck?
Despite the promises, America's longest war appears to be getting longer. Grenier, who now works for a financial firm focused on the security and intelligence sector, says for all of the billions of dollars spent in Afghanistan and lives lost, there's little to show.